In this video, I will show you about start dates in Microsoft Project, which was inspired by Eric in the post shown here. Let's take a look. The following is a list of start dates that will always be present. For example, we have the project start date. We'll go to Project, Project Information, and here we will see that we can program from either a start or a finish date. In this case, I'm programming from my start date. This will be considered our project start date. Also, too, any new tasks we add, assuming that they're not part of a relationship, are also going to adapt to this particular date as its starting date. We also have summaries or milestones. They also have starting dates. So these are typically things that we will find, and project information is one of the ways we can go in and establish that beginning project date. Now, start dates are always estimations of the date a task can start. These dates will need to be revised, of course, based on real life, how the project rolls out, and of course, as we get updates, information within meetings, we at that point need to make changes, and that will happen. Another start date that we can use as a comparison is going to be our baseline start. I'm going to go ahead and establish a baseline. Project, schedule group, set baseline, and we have up to 11 baselines. These baselines also capture not only our start date, but also data related to cost and schedule and work effort. But we're focusing here on the baseline start. Using these 11 baselines, we can often check progress against different key points in time over the life of the project. Go ahead and click OK to establish my baseline. Some things to consider and know about baseline start dates. If you have a baseline start column that shows NA value, this means that you did not yet set a baseline. Or if everything but one or two particular tasks happens to have that, it means that those tasks were added after the baseline was established. You are able to manually overwrite the baseline data. However, it's a best idea not to do that. Let's take a look at the baseline start. And as I look at the baseline start, I can go in and I can change this date to be something else. This is not a best practice, however, and we should always avoid manually adjusting the baseline. If we need to establish changes and or differences, we can go back and establish our new baseline, or possibly, if we're just interested in starts and finishes, we could use an interim plan as well. And we have 10 of those to choose from. So those are all better options instead of manually adjusting. I'm going to go ahead and undo that last change. Another column I would like to introduce is going to be the actual start. When we look at the actual start, none of my tasks at this point have been marked complete. Therefore, there is no actual start. This actual start column will show the date when the first amount of effort has been done on that specific task. The start column is the presumed start date when a task can start. But as soon as we have actual data, the actual start is the one we want to pay attention to. And the actual start, of course, will override the presumed start date. This is yet another great reason to keep those baselines in place, because the baseline start is not going to change. It is going to be there as a record for us to compare to in the future on this project. Go ahead and mark some progress. And notice, of course, that the 6/29 did show up as the actual start. Another column to take a look at is the resume column. So although it doesn't have start in the title, it will tell us when the remaining amount of work/duration will begin again. We'll go ahead and mark a little more activity complete. And notice it is now showing, since 50% of the task is complete, that we will resume work again on 7/1. Another column to look at is the scheduled start. It is equal to the start for the automatically scheduled tasks. For manually scheduled tasks, it is the recommended start, such as, say, the project start date, and it will be, of course, read only. We also have the early start. This field contains the earliest date that the task could possibly begin based on the early start dates of the predecessor and or successor tasks and other constraints and limits that are placed upon the task. Late start contains the latest date that the task can start without delaying the finish of the project. This date is based on the task start date as well as the late start and the late finish dates of the predecessor and successor tasks, and again, any other constraints that we may have applied. The start slack field contains the duration between the early start and the late start dates. The smaller of the start slack and finish slack amounts determines the amount of free time available. That is the amount of time a task can be delayed without having an impact and/or affecting the start date of the successor task. Or, of course, the project finish date, which is always something we want to keep in mind. If these weren't enough fields for you to control, to manipulate, to analyze, to compare and contrast the starts of things, we have 10 custom fields. We go to the Project tab and click on Custom Fields. We're looking for the type called Start, and these are 10 fields. And we can use these 10 fields. We can give them different names, give them custom attributes. They can be calculated. They can also display various types of values. The purpose of these is if we are needing and desiring an extra start element, this is the place to go. And we have these 10 custom fields to use as we wish, as we need. Keep in mind, any custom fields you make, you can always use the organizer. Let me show you that. That would be File, Info, and Organizer. And this organizer allows you to take any custom fields that you might have created, and you may share them with other files you have open and/or your global.mpt, which will allow you to always have those custom fields available, meaning you don't have to keep reinventing. Go ahead and close the organizer. There are several ways to change start dates. Some of the preferred options are to use our proper dependencies. We'll go ahead and take a look. These would be finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, and start to finish. We may also change a start date by manually entering it. This will cause a constraint. You want to use these, of course, sparingly. We want to keep our projects as flexible as possible. When we begin to use constraint dates, which are on the Advanced tab, by the way, when we begin to use those constraint dates with those different constraint types, we begin to get inflexible projects, and we want to keep them as flexible as possible. So whenever the option is available, try to use the relationships, the as soon as possible, and use those methods to control your start dates. Now, of course, start dates are just one of many types of very important fields within project. So when we think about organizing a project, one of the main questions we are asked is, when will it begin? Now you have many different starting points, starting dates to refer to. And thanks again, Eric, for inspiring this video. Check out other posts at the link shown below.